Hello and welcome, guys, to our first OVFL podcast we got going over here at House Edge Media. I'm going to be your host for the coming weeks. Hopefully we got about 3 months of work here. My name's Nate Behar, receiver for the Carleton Ravens, and we're excited to get this thing going. Right beside me, I got the Vice President of House Edge Media, Mr. Tyler McLaren. He's the authority on Ottawa football as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, we've been doing it at House Edge Media, I guess, for 3 years now, where we've been able to sort of stay involved in the football leagues, and we're happy to be joined by all-Canadian wide receiver Carleton Ravens on the podcast, talk about OVFL, a league that he played in, and sort of try to let people know that we're here, we're not going anywhere, we're trying to give back to the football community as well.
And that's the number one reason I'm here. I mean, this is the league that I grew up in. My first ever exposure to playing receiver was right in this league my first year at JV. So it means a lot to me to hopefully get a chance to grow this league. That's the biggest thing that we want to do here is we want to make sure everyone knows that this is where we should be growing. This is where we should all be going to develop to segue ourselves into the CIS where some great football is being played. I mean, for me, I was playing running back and quarterback my whole life, and then I got put on that London Falcons jersey before we turned into the Mustangs. I guess going into my grade 11 year, and lo and behold, I got moved to receiver, and I mean it worked out pretty well. I played a year at JV, another year of varsity when we were the Falcons, and then my final year as a junior Mustang when we won the championships, went undefeated with that 2012 team, I guess it was. And I mean, that's where the recruiting came from. That's where my real development came from. High school was fun and everything, but that's where my best coaching came from was OVFL. And I think it's a thing that we all got to put some onus on ourselves to make it grow, and we gotta love it because it's fun.
And you know what? That's the whole point of the podcast, and that's the point of the OFN TV movement that we were working on last year. And we want to try to get the spotlight on the kids, on the players, on the quality of football, because it's a high quality. Mm-hmm. This is high quality football. If you look at the population base, I've said it 10 times, Ontario has a very huge population base, even compared to many states in the United States. So there really is no excuse that we can't be as good as states like North Dakota, mm-hmm. or even some states like, I don't know how many the population of Idaho is, but we should be able to compete with a lot of these smaller states. Mm-hmm. And we don't, because there's just not the support there. So the podcast is hopefully going to be something where people can come to, listen to it, and try to get all that support. And I think it's going to be pretty darn good, I got to say.
I think so. We're looking to get touch a lot of bases here. We're always gonna do I guess a where are they now sort of segment. We're gonna try to get some player profiles going in. Today we're gonna be looking at Seattle Seahawks, Mr. Luke Wilson. I mean, why not? 10 days till the Super Bowl. He's playing.
If you talk about OVFL alumni, he really is at this point in time. He's the pinnacle of what you want to do. He did go to the NCAA. He played at Rice and everything, but we'll get into those details. But he is the guy that we want to start with. Super Bowl's coming up, so we're just sort of centering that piece around him this week with Super Bowl coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to move forward, look at CIS All-Stars, OUA All-Stars, All-Canadians, stuff like that.
That's right.
That have come from different programs, hopefully get one or two a week. We're also going to be looking in depth at different teams, at different units, where they are, what they're looking for next year.
Yeah.
And then a segment I'm really excited for is we're gonna look towards getting coaches and players on the podcast.
Yeah.
Who really have a high ceiling. The guys who have all that potential we want to talk about. We want to make sure coaches in the CIS know where they are, where they're coming from, their strengths. Hopefully we'll get to looking at what they're best at, get some highlight tapes rolling on the screen for us.
Yeah, and we're getting all this stuff prepared, and we're in contact with all the coaches from the OVFL right now. Some teams have started getting winter sessions and getting in the gym and all that stuff. Some teams wait till a little longer and all that, but we're in constant communication with all the coaches, and we're trying to line that up, and we're excited to get that going next week. Mm-hmm. And I guess the first thing we're going to really get into is just sort of talking about, if you're an OVFL player, where you got to be at right now in your training development. Mm-hmm. And I know Nate's going to give us a little background about that.
Yeah, I mean, we got a guest coming on the show today. My old trainer from back in London, who I get to see whenever I go home, which is awesome. Steve Hendriksen from Powerhouse London. As far as I'm concerned, it's the premier gym for personal training in London, Ontario. He's got a whole list of CIS guys. When every single time we go home over Christmas break, there's 30 of us in the gym every single time, coming from all the different schools from around the country. And it's an awesome place to see. I mean, we got one pro now. We got a kicker for the Edmonton Eskimos. Zach Medeiros has been training there, so he knows what he's doing. He's turned us all around, and he's really brought a culture of what you got to train like in London. And he's going to be on to talk about some sort of myths and the truth about how to develop that explosiveness in the off season and that speed. So that's going to be
great. That's going to be in our next segment now. when we'll get to talk to some details to him later, but right now, if you're a player in the OVFL, what should you be working on right now?
As far as I'm concerned, it's definitely position based, but explosiveness is the number one thing in football. And I mean, so many guys get so concerned and so caught up with looking good and looking big. But I mean, if you're not pushing that weight fast, you can be pushing 245 on the bench as a 16, 17-year-old and feel great about yourself. But if you're not moving that weight fast with some speed, I mean, it's not going to translate all that much over to the field, right? So I think explosiveness is one of the number one things. And then one thing that's always overlooked is your flexibility and just being able to stay on the field. I mean, I know there's kids, and you don't always get the highest level of of athletic trainers when you're in high school or you're in the OVFL. So it's a lot of the onus is on yourself, which a lot of kids don't look past. And I know too many friends that have missed seasons just because they've been in the gym working on sort of the wrong sort of thing. They haven't been focusing on keeping their body ready. So if they get a nick or a bruise in a practice or in training camp or in a first week, sometimes those linger all the way through the season. So I think explosiveness, being able to stay healthy are two huge things, and then always being on the field. It's not always about the gym. Got to get in the field house, got to get on some turf, got to get on some grass and hit a speed ladder, get some cone drills going. It's winter right now, but if you can get indoors somewhere, it's great. As soon as that snow starts to go away, you got to get your feet moving. It's a big thing.
Cool, man. Yeah, I think the big thing I always like to see is when kids do the non-gym stuff. The gym stuff is important. You got to do it. Absolutely. But I want to see the kids that do go out when it's cold outside in the fall and early winter, and they're out there on the hard grass, or they're finding the areas indoors where they can really work on their football skills and translate that strength into an applicable feature on the football field. And I always think that that's the number one thing that people got to sort of say. And I always think a guy like Troy Polamalu, like just talking about his training regimen, and he's always focused on sort of like plyometric stuff and medicine balls and elastics and all that jazz. And that's great because that's really translatable to the football game. And that's why he was so good for so long, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. And I mean, again, so many people get caught up, especially in high school. It's so easy to get caught up in the whole just being a meathead is the common term, I guess, these days. Just wanted to go in and bench as much as you can, squat as much as you can, because you put that on a highlight tape at the front. You say, I squat 500 pounds, and it sounds great and everything, but you can squat 500 pounds. If you can't move somebody, then what's really the point?
And I guess another thing that some people always overlook is basically like, you got to be eating right too. You could be doing all the working out you want to do, and you can be on all the fields you want to do, but if you're not putting the right stuff into your body, you're sort of losing out all that hard work. Talk a little bit about the importance of the nutrition.
It's funny you say that, actually. Just yesterday, our Carleton Ravens team, we had a nutritionist come in from Acadia University and talk to us. She just graduated, and we're 20-year-olds and older, 20-year-old guys and older, and we're getting still talked to about how to eat right. And it's so important because, I mean, if you're not getting right amount of carbs in your diet, you're going to be tired for your workout, you're going to be tired for your run, you're going to slack off. You're not getting enough vegetables, you're not getting enough of your vitamins and all that. You're going to be sick for your workout, you're going to slack off, you're not going to get as much progress as you can. You're not getting enough protein, you're not going to build after your workouts. So, I mean, if you're not feeding your body right, that is sometimes, I think, the hardest part. I mean, you can take a pre-workout shake or a couple of caffeine pills and be jacked up to go to the gym, but it's pretty hard to drink a coffee, take some caffeine, and get jacked up to go make a nice meal.
Yeah,
so it's one of those things that,
especially with the lifestyle a student has.
Yes, exactly, and it's one of those things that it's got to be a priority for yourself. I mean, you got to be able to prioritize it, which is so hard. You have class, you have your schooling, you have your workouts, you have your lifts, you have all that, and it's somehow you got to find a way to prioritize going to the grocery store or telling your mom or your dad what you want to be eating, being able to get it into them if you're a younger guy. What you need to be eating, because they don't always know. I mean, moms know that they got to get you some vegetables, they got to get you some protein, but it becomes a little bit different when you're burning 2,000 calories a day, 2,500, 3,000 calories, and you need 4,500 calories to put on some weight. I mean, it's got to become a priority to you to know what your body needs, and it's as simple as going to Google, going to YouTube, learning for yourself, and it's just priorities, taking the time to prepare it, and finding time in the day to just make sure you can block it off so you can cook a couple of meals right here, freeze them, do whatever you got to do, put them in Tupperware, and it's just being smart, and it's not easy. It's not easy for sure.
And those are the things that can separate. Those are the things that separate the guys that become CIS All-Canadians or CIS All-Stars or CIS starters or CIS bench players, or they never make the CIS. Absolutely. You can sort of look at there's some people maybe eat great, but they don't go to the gym enough. And some guy maybe works on his foot drills all the time, but he has McDonald's every day. And it's a whole combination. And there's never one clear path solution, but you got to make sure you're sort of taking care of your business at every sort of facet. And in the off season, in January, when it's really cold, it's a lot tougher in Canada to do than it is in Dallas, Texas, or in San Diego, California, when they can be out there all year long doing all these things. You can put a bench out in front of the grass. You like in the movie Friday, guys are just working out in front of their grass. It's hard to do here, but it also shows that discipline. So when you see a guy do it, that's a big positive.
Absolutely. I mean, I can attest as myself until my last year of high school, my 5th year, I was $175 soaking wet at the very best. I mean, our next guest can attest to that. But when I decided, and I was working out every day as hard as I thought I could, and then the biggest difference is when I started taking control of my meals and putting all that extra in my body. And then by the end of that year, before I got here to Ottawa, there was 20 pounds extra on my body, and all it came from my workouts did not change. I was still pushing myself as hard as I thought I could.
Yep.
It was just what I was putting into my body.
Well, when we come back, we're going to listen to what's your trainer's name again?
Mr. Steve Hendriksen.
All right, Steve Hendriksen coming up next. To book your team or to learn more about baseline concussion testing, please visit acpottawa.ca and visit one of our 5 locations in the city of Ottawa.
All right, welcome back to the OVFL podcast. I'm joined now by my personal trainer back home in London, Ontario, Mr. Steve Hendriksen of Powerhouse London. He's joining us here today. He's going to give us some truths about speed training and power training and some of the myths and some of the misconceptions people have with it. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thanks for having me.
So if you want to jump right into it, what's the first thing you'd want to tell athletes when they're regarding speed and power training?
All right, so first of all, the main big mistake that I often see athletes making is turning every sprint-based session into conditioning work. So in order to improve speed and power qualities, every rep you perform must be at or very close to your max capabilities, which will require complete rest between reps. So a general rule of thumb for improving speed and power is to keep every rep at 95% or greater than the best that you're capable of. And as far as rest is concerned, I follow a guideline of about 1 minute of rest for every 10 meters of sprint work. So, for example, a 40-yard sprint, this would be around 3 to 4 minutes of rest. And this will largely depend on the level of athlete. So elite-level athletes may need even longer than that.
And am I correct in saying, like, trying to turn your speed training work into more conditioning, that's just putting yourself at more risk for injury, right? Like if you're got sensitive hamstrings,
So trying to perform at a high level while limiting your rest will increase the chances of injury. So,
all right.
The one thing athletes looking to get faster need to do is learn the difference between training at 100% intensity and training at 100% effort.
Okay.
So 100% intensity would be like what I just described, and that you're performing at or very close to the max that you're capable of.
Okay.
100% effort would simply be trying as hard as you can at whatever sprint work you're doing.
So
as an example, like if you're being timed on multiple 300-yard shuttles with short recovery in between, you'll likely be giving 100% effort so you can get a good time, but this won't be anywhere close to 100% intensity, and therefore it's not going to help you improve your speed.
Okay, so it's kind of the old work hard versus work smart sort of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it's still working hard. It's just working hard in an appropriate way that will allow you to accomplish your goals.
Absolutely. Does this rest thing, does that carry over into the weight room as well? Like when you're talking about squatting and benching and stuff like that, is that whole like taking longer rest to work on power similar, or?
To give a comparison of like different styles of sprint training, then hopefully this will kind of illustrate what I'm trying to get across. So I just have like 2 example workouts. So workout 1 would be more in line with like a speed session that I'd have athletes perform, and then that would consist of 5 40-yard sprints with 4 minutes of recovery between reps. And workout 2 would be more in line with what I commonly see like athletes doing or coaches doing. That might consist of something like 15 40-yard sprints with a minute of rest between reps. So.
Okay.
In workout 1, you're getting complete recovery between reps. And that should allow you to stay between 95 and 100% of your best time. So you'll wind up, so if you're running 40-yard distances, you'll wind up with total yardage, 200 yards of good speed work. Whereas in workout 2, you might be able to stay above 95% for like 2 or maybe 3 of the reps because of the incomplete recoveries. So by the time the workout's all done, you end up with 80 to 120 yards of actual speed work. And then what you're left with is just like an extra like 400 to 500 yards of sprint volume that's not going to help improve your speed qualities. It'll increase your chance of injury, and it'll significantly add to the recovery demands from the workout.
And you might feel like you worked a little harder doing that second workout, right? So a lot of kids might feel like, oh, well, I ran all these yards and I felt like I was giving it my all, but in reality, you shouldn't be like you're not going to get the same benefits from it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was just going to say. Like,
yeah.
In workout 1, every rep is performed with purpose and at the proper intensity to help you achieve the goal of running faster. While workout 2 will have a limited effect, if any, in helping you achieve this goal. And most athletes and coaches would look at workout 2 and see that more work is being done and it'll be perceived as a harder workout, so they'll think it's better. But when it comes to improving speed and power, just because some is good, it doesn't mean that more is better, and oftentimes more will lead to problems instead of improved performance.
Okay. I guess another question, might be putting you on the spot here. Do you think that like an O lineman, D lineman, those sort of guys, and mixed guys, so running backs, linebackers with a little more weight, should be training for speed a lot different than a receiver DB, or is it just maybe volume should be decreased and increased depending on the athleticism?
So when it comes to that, I basically just I fluctuate the volume based on position and or positional demand. So generally linemen would be less less distance per sprint and less total volume per session than like a linebacker, running back, which would be less than like a defensive back or a wide receiver. And then quarterbacks just kind of depend on the offense.
Fair enough. Yeah, some of them don't need to run too much. Some of them need to get those feet running. All right. And then in the gym, would you say should they be doing the same though? Then if a O lineman or a D lineman is running less on the field, should they be trying to lift more or do more reps or more power, or should they stay similar in the gym?
So the general way that I look at it, linemen need to have a bit more of a focus on max strength than like a wide receiver would, where speed is going to be a more dominant quality. So so like the focus definitely changes. And then so like when I have guys sprinting in the gym, like I'm limited on space, so it's always short sprints. But if I have them lifting after, I always have like my total volume of sprinting is going to be a little bit less than if we're performing it outside, and it's just like a speed-based session, no lifting after.
So it's important for guys to realize you can't be doing 10 40-yard sprints if you're going to squat after. But if you're just running, you can maybe up the level of the volume of sprints, right? That's kind of the gist here.
In general, like your body can only handle and adapt to so much of a stimulus. So generally, if you add something in, something else needs to be either taken out or done at a lower intensity.
All right. And last thing I want to touch on here, can you kind of point to the importance of like the stretching, maybe the yoga or anything like that for our young guys? 'Cause I mean, a lot of guys, I know myself personally, it didn't really get driven into me deep enough until I kind of got to university and had some hamstring problems. I mean, I had them all through high school, but it didn't really get into me until my trainer yelled at me for a whole year. So, I mean, can you just quickly talk about how important it is for guys to really be stretching, really be paying attention to their health?
Yeah, the main thing, performing proper mobility work. Like, I personally don't have much experience or any experience for that matter with yoga, but doing something to make sure that you're flexible enough to achieve the positions that you'll be in when you're sprinting, because sprinting is one of the fastest muscle actions that your body will ever encounter. So if your body's not able to get in those positions properly, that's when you wind up with like hamstring pulls and injuries like that. So yeah, always making sure that you keep an eye on flexibility and mobility. Anytime you do a speed-based session, you always want to make sure you're doing a good dynamic warm-up. So, my warm-ups generally take like 20 to 30 minutes when it's a speed-based session. That's just making sure that the body's properly warmed up, like you're able to get proper range of motion and all the joints that are important for sprinting. So,
last thing I want to say with that is, it general rule of thumb that on a strictly speed day, your warm-up should actually normally be longer than your runs, right? I'm pretty sure I've heard you say that to me multiple times. Is that right for everyone listening?
Yeah, again, that kind of depends. So, like on a speed day when we're out on like a field or a track or something, the warm-up will probably take close to like 30 minutes. That'll include some like build-up sprints and light accelerations or like a shorter distance accelerations and stuff like that. And then the actual sprint part itself won't be like, it'll probably be around like half an hour for my football guys, but then I generally also add in stuff like jumps and med ball throws and stuff like that, just to kind of complete like the workout. So.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Steve, thank you so much. We're happy to have you here on the first OVFL podcast we got. I'm sure as the off season comes along, we're going to have more questions for you, and we're probably going to try to get you back on here if you're willing and able. Thank you so much. So everyone, this is Steve Hendriksen from Powerhouse London. If you're a London listener, if you play Junior Mustangs or anything, the OFC, anything like that, I implore you to give them a try. You can find them on Powerhouse London on Facebook. And yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, have fun training the guys today. If you see anybody I know, let them know I say hi.
Sounds good.
All right, have a good one, Steve.
To book your team or to learn more about baseline concussion testing, please visit acpottawa.ca and visit one of our 5 locations in the city of Ottawa.
All right, we're back with the OVFL podcast. So Tyler, I think quickly we're going to look at a player profile, an OVFL alumni. We're going to try to get to one a week, and I mean, right now we're 10 days out from the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So I mean, who better to look at than Mr. Essex Ravens, Mr. Luke Wilson.
Luke Wilson, he's been making plays all year this season. I remember, I think it was against Arizona. He took it 80 yards in the house, to the house. He's 2-point conversion. He caught that one this week. And
that 2-point Hail Mary.
2-point Hail Mary, exactly. That really, at the end of the day, is what allowed them to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And he's been making plays for 2 years, and he played in the OVFL, and now he's on the Seattle Seahawks. 1-time Super Bowl champion. I wouldn't be surprised if he was 2-time Super Bowl champion in 10 days.
Exactly. And I mean, we're looking at a guy who plays tight end in a very run-heavy offense that has almost 700 career yards in 2 years as a tight end. Yep. He's got 4 touchdowns. He's their go-to guy as a tight end. I mean, he's number 1 on the depth chart. That's looks like. And I mean, for a guy coming out of Ontario, in the Premier Ontario League,
yep,
that is the OVFL, and he's been quoted in articles. I mean, in his Windsor Star article, he says that he doesn't, without the Essex Ravens, without this development process he doesn't think that he would have had a chance at Rice, where he played for 4 years. That's right. And then with that, a chance in the NFL. So he's kind of the template, I guess.
He is. And it helps that he's 6'5", 250, and runs a 4.5 flat 40, which is like not lightning fast, but for 6'5", 250, that's extremely athletic and fast.
Pretty good, yeah.
And if he says it's a good development process, if he was able to use that development process to make it to the NFL, then we believe that more people should recognize that and be like, wow, okay, not everyone's going to make the NFL, but the process is sound. The system is there. The league, the competition is great. So we should shout out the people that do it, and the league does its job.
Absolutely. Some of the best volunteers you'll ever see.
That's right.
I mean, these people give up so much of their time for it, and it's great and it's awesome. And he's what we can all strive to be like, And
dream. If you're going to dream, you might as well dream big.
Exactly.
Right? And you know what? We're not telling kids don't think about it, but at the end of the day, you got to do the path that's right. If you're 6'5", 250 and run a 4.5 flat, you have a chance. You know?
Absolutely. All right, so from there, we're gonna go into our first state of the team. What do you want to call it? And some guys that you're pretty familiar with. The Cumberland Panthers is the first team we got on the docket for this week.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about them if you want to start from the bottom up.
Well, obviously they're always going to be playing the little brother to Myers Riders. They're the 2 teams from Ottawa. Myers has been around since day 1, and they have a lot of success. And so Cumberland Panthers are always going to have to deal with that. Last season, they obviously had an extremely successful year at all 3 divisions. They made the playoffs at all 3 divisions. They lost in the semifinals at both the Bantam and the junior varsity divisions, and they ended up losing in the first round of the playoffs in the varsity division, but it was a classic game. It was like 41-37. It was a great game. They really held their own, and they had a chance to go on next week and maybe even make it a little further. So big successes for all 3 teams. I think they got a lot to be excited for next year.
Yeah. Tell me about their Bantam team. I think you said they had their quarterback's back this year.
Yeah.
Right?
So last year they did have a little bit of sort of injury problems at the quarterback position. Okay. So the guy that they had at quarterback wasn't able to play a lot of the games. So they had a young kid named Christian play a lot, and he is probably the best quarterback prospect in the city of Ottawa. Yeah. If you're going to look at the young kids, like the young guys coming up like 12 and under, the guy had like 50 touchdowns every year. He just literally he's advanced in his quarterback skills for his age, and I think him coming up to the Bantam team with all the athletes they're going to be able to have from the Mustangs and from the Raiders and from all the other teams that feed the OVFL Panthers team, I think he's going to have a huge year, and he's going to be the catalyst to their team because their best player, Kean Williams, he's moving up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
And he dominated the league last year.
Yeah.
And he's moving up to JV where the big boys play. And now he's going to have to see what they can do.
Okay. Yeah. So I think they had something like 4 All-Stars last year.
They had tons of great. They had like literally all the Cumberland teams had tons of great players.
Yes.
And at the Bantam division, they just lost to Myers.
Yeah.
They ended up losing to Myers at Bantam, and it was a close game, 28-21. They were down 28-0, and they almost came back and were able to do it. But when you're down 28-0, it's tough.
So you think this might be a year they challenge him again?
I think, to be honest, last year I thought Myers overachieved, even though they won the championship. So you got to give him. They had Honorella Loki. He's a great player. So he's going to be gone. I look at the quarterback, Christian, coming up for Bantam Panthers, and if he does what I think he can do, I think they're going to be pretty difficult to stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not talking about Keon Williams, the guy's moving up to JV.
He's moving up to JV.
How do you think those guys look?
Well, they're the biggest question mark, in my opinion, to be honest with you, because they're losing so many great players. Like, I can't even, like, you were trying to do a list of all the All-Stars. I was like, don't even bother, because it's like 30. You know?
They got, I'm pretty sure they led the league in All-Star appearances.
They're undefeated regular season. Warren Steves has those guys, like, literally so focused on trying to win a championship last year. Their starting running back led the league in rushing, Baxter Balthazar. He'll be eligible to move up to the varsity division where they can really use the help at running back. So I do think it's a nice fit there. I think there are some coaches from the junior varsity team that are going to be moving up with the kids to the varsity program because they've invested a couple years in them. And I think that sometimes as a coach, if you've already put the time in with the kids, it makes the transition for the kids a lot easier if you can go with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that if what I think I've heard is true, I think that will really benefit the varsity team. But guys like Tavon Hibbard, I think his name is. He's a wide receiver. He can play football. He played on the team last year. John Mafuta, he can play football. He can move up next year. Pascal, the quarterback, he can move up and play. These are all guys that can help contribute right away to a varsity team that's on the up and up, who gets almost every player back, including their entire like starting defense, I think, pretty much. But the people I haven't spoke about with the junior varsity team is the offensive line. They have the best offensive line in the country, in the province, and all three of the best players, they're moving up. So now those three guys are going to be playing offensive line for Ron Raymond and the varsity team. So there's so many good players coming from the junior varsity team up to the varsity that I don't know how great these junior varsity teams can be. They're just losing so many guys. They got good players coming in. But that's the biggest question mark I have. I know that Alex Loria, quarterback, will be able to do big things, and Kean Williams will be able to be a big-time contributor. But first year, you never know.
That's always the biggest question mark with in the OVFL is that age group, because especially some guys develop so fast. But just the age it's kind of that weird age where some guys that are first year in JV might not be as far in their development, and then you get the guys who walk in with full beards and look like they're 25 years old sometimes. Exactly.
But when they move up to varsity, those guys sometimes have a bigger problem.
Then it mellows it back out when everyone's kind of starting to develop. So this varsity team, you think, is looking pretty good?
The thing about the varsity team that's so good is, number one, they got a coach that's so excited to be coaching. January 1st hit, he was posting on Facebook that sign-ups going. Like, Ron Raymond is so excited because they put in a lot of work last year. They had a lot of young guys. They really stuck with their system. And I think at the end of the year, they were playing their best football. They lost a game on like one drive, like one play. They had the game won. They ended up losing it. And I think that stuck with them. Every single one of them. They're like, we're actually that close to beat a team that actually made a push to win the next round. So they have some confidence inside. I think they get almost every one of their players back. They get tons of great, like 15 top prospects coming up from the JV division, fill the rosters everywhere. He's most excited about this offensive line because, like you said, can a 17-year-old offensive lineman dominate the varsity program? Probably not. But when you get three of them, and they're all good players, it's going to make your whole team just a little bit better.
Absolutely.
And their quarterback's coming back, and he was at Ottawa U last year. He didn't get to play at Ottawa U, but he's on the team. He's working with the coaches. He's probably running, I'm assuming if he's not dressing, he's probably running the scout team. So that's a lot of great reps.
Absolutely.
And if you can take those reps he learned at Ottawa U and bring him to the varsity division, I can only feel that's going to be a positive for the team.
Absolutely. And who's, I guess, the young guy coming up, Pascal, who I had the pleasure of coaching last year in the AIA game. And that kid can play too. So
he can play. And you know what? I think that especially if the same coaches are coming up and Pascal can sort of continue his growth with Intari and sort of see if he can take the next step in his development. Like, he didn't play well at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I'm going to be harsh on Pascal. I love the guy, but he didn't have his best games the last 2 games of the year. He peaked mid-season. The whole team did. And I want to see him sort of try to get to the point where he's taking his team to the next level. And that it's a team effort, but it's got to start with your quarterback. It always does start with your quarterback.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, like, as I said, I watched every game from Cumberland Panthers last year. I'm excited to see these guys move up. I'm excited to get working with them this year. And it's exciting to see all these kids that play Cumberland Panthers in NCAFA, because these are all NCAFA guys, Mustangs and Raiders and St. Pat's High School, Hillcrest High School, Franco Cite. These are all this is my neighborhood. This is all the kids this is where I grew up. I played Panthers back in the day. So it's good to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited to see them. Hopefully, we're going to get the chance to talk to them. Some of them on the show. Talk
next
to some
week,
coaches.
we're going to have Warren Steves on the show, and we're going to be talking about some of his key returning guys, and we'll also talk about some of his key guys that he's going to be feeding up to Ron Raymond and the varsity team. Warren has a company, Athletic Recruiters Canada, really tries to help kids make the next step in their athletic development. So we'll be talking to him about that a little bit next week. And who knows, maybe we'll get your trainer back on and talk about nutrition or something else, some other factor, you know? So
we're trying to help these kids grow, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure.
Amen. This is the first podcast of many.
Yep.
We want to thank everyone for listening. I want to thank Nate, doing a great job and running with it. And next week we're going to be right back at it. So take us away, Nate.
Yeah. Well, guys, I just thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned for the next one. Help us share the link. You know, follow us on Twitter. Make sure you're doing all those little things for us, and we're gonna help try to make this league grow. It's gonna be a pleasure. We're excited to work with you guys. We're excited to work with everybody here in Ottawa and all of Ontario to make this OVFL turn into something special. So for the guys at House Edge Media, for Tyler McLaren, I'm Nate Behar, and thanks for listening, guys.